Hey guys, Urban Combat Survivor here. This is another in the ongoing saga back and forth between myself and Shall Not Be Infringed about property rights and laws and making laws make sense. And lots of videos. I don't know. I think this is probably the seventh or so back and forth on this. So you probably want to watch them. All right. Shall Not Be Infringed. I watched your video and yet again, I'm going to be responding before I've really sat and thought too much about it. So I might put my foot in my mouth here, but here goes anyway. You talked about the castle doctrine or the castle law, and your point that you made was that you don't think that law should even be necessary, and that people should just use common sense. And I think the reason that I think we agree on a lot of this stuff, but I think we're coming at it from two completely opposite angles. Let me explain. You're coming at all this stuff from the perspective of the citizen, and that laws are about citizens. And I come at this whole thing from the perspective that laws aren't about citizens, they're about the government. So to put that in perspective, that castle doctrine, it's not about us. It's about them, It's about stopping zealous prosecutors. Your example about that woman that they actually tried to convict because they thought she could have crawled out some window. So the law is there to stop the government. As far as I can see, the entire initial intent of the Constitution and the way our system was set up was to protect citizens from the government, not the other way around. You're never going to be able to stop some idiotic prosecutor from getting in place. All you can do, is put laws in place to protect us from the government, which includes those idiot prosecutors. So I think we largely agree on that. It's just that, we're seeing it from two different ways. You got into the Constitution thing, and really, I was just kind of tossing that out there as kind of a what if, shit at the fan scenario kind of deal where, if it dropped in my lap, like you said, the magic wand was in my hand, that's how I'd handle it. So you're right, there'd have to be a constitutional convention. Things would come up for for debate and possible revocation that we probably wouldn't want. But the reality there is that if we did have a constitutional convention, the majority of the public thinks more in common sense terms like we do than they do like these freaking politicians and whack jobs. So if it did come down to a constitutional convention and it actually represented what the people wanted, I don't think any of the original 10 would be tossed out at all. I think if people are educated on what's going on, if people actually take the time to read about this shit, the 17th Amendment to the Constitution should never have been allowed to happen, because the Constitution itself says it shouldn't be allowed to happen. But nobody's challenged this. If that got in front of a court, I believe on the history of the Supreme Court, they'd strike that amendment down as unconstitutional. It'd be fucking gone. For those not familiar, 17th Amendment is what took senators from being appointed by state legislature and made it their own election. And on its surface, that might look like a good thing, but if you read into it a little bit further and you think about it a little bit, you'll realize this shit that just happened with the healthcare bill. 70-something%, I think the highest number at one point while this debate was going on was somewhere in the 80 percentile and above, that didn't want this healthcare shit forced down our throats. There's nothing we could do about it because there's no way we could stop that Senate and that House from pushing that shit through right now. We have a bicameral Congress for a reason. It's supposed to go through two different phases before it ever gets to a desk. Well, as long as the senators were appointed by the states, when that crazy shit was going on, you could pressure your state legislature, and it was a states' rights issue at that point. And every state in the union would have fought that because that's usurping the rights of the states and giving more power to the federal government. So the state legislatures, if those senators would have just been jamming that through like that, they simply would have called him back. They'd have fired him. Because they have to answer directly to us, and that would have been, they definitely have a dog in that fight. They would not allow that shit to go through. Also, it's a lot easier to bribe 51 senators than it is to bribe however many thousands of legislators there are if you count up all of them in individual states. So the point of that, the point of decentralizing the power in the ways that our Constitution initially did it, was to stop shit like that from happening. So that's why I think, a lot of the shit after the 10th Amendment needs to be removed or it needs to be rewritten. Somebody actually commented on one of these videos when I said that slavery would then be legal again if you snipped everything off. And I absolutely disagree. Somebody needs to go through that Constitution, show me where in the Constitution and in the first 10 amendments, the Bill of Rights, show me where slavery is legal in there in the first place. So, I think that's kind of a moot argument. So, anyway, that law was about removing the rights from the states. That should be handled on the state level. Anyway, back to the lab here. So, I'm reading off some notes I wrote. You made the comment about writing laws in a way that people can understand, and that was the point that I made with my, I think, 11th Amendment. So, understanding that law should be mandatory. Every law, like you said, at an 8th grade level. I don't know how far off that may be, because in Philadelphia we have two major newspapers. We have the Philadelphia Daily News and the Philadelphia Inquirer. The Daily News is written on something like a 3rd or a 4th grade level, and it's basically for the idiots. And then the Inquirer is supposed to be for those that are more intelligent, but I think it's only written at an 8th or a 9th grade level. So, if that's the average, see, that's the reason that I said the average American, because you're always going to have people that are more intelligent or less intelligent. But if you take a mean and you use that mean as your set standard, then that does a whole lot of good things for the country. For instance, right now, right now our education system, anybody who's paying attention can tell you our educational system's been completely fucking hijacked by the teachers' unions. It's no longer about kids. It's no longer about educating those kids. It's about indoctrination, and it's about instilling values in our kids that aren't American, that aren't like what we would put there, Well, if you made it where these guys can only pass laws that the average American can read and understand to a reasonable degree in 30 minutes, there would be a hell of a lot more focus put very quickly on upping the educational standards in this country, because they will want that average to go up. So now, I'm not saying that I agree that the government should be running education. I don't know. That's a whole other debate I'm not even going to get into right here in this one. But since they are running it, that damn sure would push them further in the right direction, wouldn't it? I like that 3-strike rule that you came up with. That could be fucking genius. The problem is it could also be used the other way. Here's an example: Megan's Law. I don't know if it was Megan's Law or the Amber Alert Law. Either one. If you look at the history of those, one of them, I forget which one it is. I'm sure somebody will correct me here. But if you look at the history, it was voted down like 3 times because these legislators kept tacking shit onto them. So, if that 3-strike law was in place, technically the bill that was up for debate was the Amber Alert bill, or whichever one it was. So that had been struck down 3 times. Well, I don't think there's anybody in the country, other than someone who likes to steal kids, is going to say that law shouldn't have been passed. So, I think, most of the shit, let me explain where I'm thinking here. Most of the crap laws that go through are sneaky ass amendments that are put onto the bottoms and the backs of bills. They tell you this bill is about this. And, the main subject of that bill it's all that sneaky shit they put on the end of it that they're not talking about that puts these ridiculous laws in place. So, if you made it where that 12th Amendment I said, make it where the bill can only have a single main subject and every damn thing in it has to apply directly and immediately to that main subject, they can't put all that tack on shit anymore, and they're not going to sneak through. I'm sure they'll find some other way to sneak shit through, and you address that when it gets there. But think about good laws that could have been struck down. That Castle Doctrine could have been struck down if people were powerful enough to lobby against it. Because people make their opinions on fucking 30-second sound bites. They don't actually read anything. Most voters. So what I would do though, maybe is something like that 3-strike law within 10 years. Make it where you try it 3 times within 10 years, and that's it. It's killed for 10 years from the last time that bill was put forward. So, make it where you try to ram this thing through 3 times, and enough people are aware of it, it stops. You have to wait 10 years before you try again, after the 3rd time. So now you've been trying to push this thing through for 4 years, and now you got to wait 10 years. You're looking at 14 years worth of failure because you were trying to push something through that people don't want. But that still leaves the option open to reintroduce bills that may be good, or maybe the idea was good but the wording sucked on it, something like that. So I think you could also mitigate a lot of this shit if you made it mandatory, make it a law that any new bill has to be published for the entire public to see for a full 30 days. 30 days before a debate and a vote can happen on it. Because, look, basically they use all this obscuratory language. They make these bills too long to read. So if you make it where I can read it, I can understand it, the bill only has one fucking topic, and I get 30 days to sit, understand, read, and debate this with other people. I think that would clean up a hell of a lot of the mess that's going on in Washington. As a side note, how the fuck are lobbyists legal? How is it legal to have someone whose entire job is to wine, dine, and bribe a legislator to make laws that favor a special interest group rather than the general population? How the fuck is that possible? Only in America, right? Anyway, that's a side note. That example you gave with the beaver, where it would flood out your, $400,000 house. That's why laws should make sense. But so should building make sense. What if that guy, instead of it being because of that beaver, look at these guys who have these $1 million houses, $5 million houses on a floodplain, or they build them on the side of these fucking hills that they know are going to mudslide and destroy it. I met a guy when I was working down south before who had a house. That house had gotten hit by a hurricane. He bought the house. It was like a $2 million house. He bought the fucking house. The house got hit by a hurricane. He never moved into this house. He got the insurance and the check from the government because the house was destroyed. The repair work was almost done on the house, and it got hit by another hurricane, and the house was destroyed again, and he did the whole process. That guy made a profit on that house in like 6 years. So, where you build should make sense as well. So, that's why the government shouldn't be involved in the insurance business. It just stay the fuck out because it's too easy to bribe them. So, one more thing about your video before I sign off here. You're telling all them ghost stories. Your light's going out there. Maybe that's revenge, brother. They're coming for you. No matter where you're at, they're coming to get you, bro. Anyway, so that's that. I don't know if I was able to get my points across in ways that made sense here. I feel time constrained with these fucking videos. But anyway, there it is. And like you said, I'm sure people are ready to kill both of us by now over this. But fuck it, they don't need to watch these ones, right? Urban Combat Survivor, signing off.